From Royal Communications Incorporated, a pleasant good evening. Welcome to King's Newsroom for the 5 minutes of news from Liberia, Africa, and the rest of our one world. Today is Thursday, January 15th, 2026. My name is Cornelius Johnson. Anchoring this evening presentation, straight up the headlines. U.S. government officials raise concerns over House Speaker Richie Cohn's U.S. green card marital controversy involving a woman claiming to be his sister. Aggrieved workers of the National Port Authority calls on President Joseph Boakai to veto a bill proposing to grant autonomy to Liberia's port, warning that it poses serious threat to the survival of small ports across the country. The Liberia Council of Churches has strongly condemned the alleged sodomy and gave rape of a 14-year-old boy reportedly involving former NSA officer Peter Bonjala, emphasizes the need for a strict enforcement of policy against sexual exploitation. And away from home, votes being counted in Uganda elections as opposition alleges raking. The news bulletin Voices of the Newsmakers are all packaged in this edition of the program. We take a very short break to be right back. Many thanks for being there. Up next is the bulletin of news with Newton Topai. Good evening, Newton.
Issues with potential international dimensions, thereby prompting interest beyond the country's borders. Although specific details remain unclear, the situation has contributed to increasing scrutiny of senior officials within the Boakai-led administration amid growing public calls for greater transparency and accountability in governance. Aggrieved workers of the National Port Authority through the dock workers union have formally petitioned President Joseph Boakai to veto a bill proposing to grant autonomy to Liberia's ports. According to them, the proposed legislation could have adverse consequences for the long-term sustainability and coordinated management of the country's port system. In their petition, the union described the bill as counterproductive to post-development, arguing that it is not supported by any evidence that can justify such a significant policy shift. They maintain that the legislation fails to adequately consider the substantial operational and financial resources required to develop and maintain ports nationwide. The workers also cautioned that if enacted, the bill could threaten the survival of smaller ports, including those in Meriden and Sino counties, which currently depend on the free port of Monrovia for operational and financial support. The Liberal Council of Churches has strongly condemned the alleged sodomy and gang rape of a 14-year-old boy reportedly involving former NSA officer Peter Bonjala. Speaking at a press conference in Monrovia Thursday, the LCC Secretary General Reverend Dr. Christopher Toll described the alleged act as a grave criminal offense and a gross violation to the victim's fundamental right to life and dignity. Reverend Dr. Toll stated that such actions constitute a clear breach of Liberia's constitution as well as the country's international obligations, which require the state to prevent, investigate, and prosecute acts of sexual violence, and further express serious concern over the increasing incidents of sexual violence in the country, particularly cases involving state security personnel, noting that such allegations severely undermine public trust in government institutions. The Council, through its Secretary General, urged the government and relevant authorities to conduct an independent, transparent, and impartial investigation into the matter. The Liberal Council of Churches also emphasized the need for a strict enforcement of policies against sexual exploitation within public institutions and emphasized the need for full accountability and ensure the perpetrators are brought to justice. Information Minister Jeremy Pierre has assured the public that the United Party left government will not permit a repeat of the U.S. sanction experience during the administration of former President George Weah. Minister Pierre's response for the U.S. government's decision to indefinitely pause the processing of certain immigrant visas for nationals of 75 countries, including Liberia. Speaking at the Ministry of Information, Cultural Affairs and Tourism press briefing on Thursday, Mr. Pierre clarified the United States did not sanction the Weah administration as a government, but rather imposed measures on specific individuals he identified as having engaged in criminal activities. The information minister also dismissed reports suggesting that the United States has imposed a blanket restriction on visas for Liberians. He claimed that the current measure applied only to immigrant visas and do not affect non-immigrant categories. Mr. Piat further urged Liberians at home and abroad to refrain from mocking or stigmatizing families affected by the visa restrictions, noting that it could have a social and emotional impact on those affected. The newly established advocacy group, Citizens United for Fair and Improved that's electrical services in Niba County, has accused the government of Liberia and private electricity providers of systemic neglect, exploitation, and prioritization of elite interests over the broader public welfare. The group, which comprises residents, small business owners, youth leaders, civil society actors from across Niba County, made the allegation during a press conference held at the Ganta Youth Center. During the press conference, speaking on behalf of the organization, Chairman Prince Howard emphasized that access to electricity is a fundamental public service, not a privilege. He stressed that reliable power supply is a basic necessity and should be made available to all citizens. Howard further alleged that the chief executive officer of the electricity distribution company enjoys uninterrupted 24-hour electricity at Jackie's Resort, a private commercial establishment, while surrounding communities continue to experience prolonged power outages. As part of its demands, the group issued a 30-day ultimatum to the government of Liberia, the Liberia Electricity Regulatory Commission, and the electricity provider calling for the immediate suspension of the U.S. 1.50 expansion fee. Medical professionals of the Armed Forces of Liberia have joined counterparts from Ghana, Italy, and the United States to demonstrate their medical proficiency at the U.S. Army Soften European Task Force Africa Best Medic competition in Italy. The EFL team delivered what has been termed as an outstanding performance, resulting to all four Liberian competitors winning the U.S. Army Achievement Medal. Meanwhile, the honor recognizes exceptional achievements and services that exceed standard duty requirements. The competition brought together 24 personnel who were tested on physical endurance and technical competence under realistic combat conditions. The AFL noted that the training aligns with its strategic objective to establish an independent tactical combat casualty care program. Former Bon County District 5 Representative and former Senatorial candidate Elder Kafia has urged students of the United Methodist University, Vanguard campus, to see themselves as IT future leaders of society and a lead with purpose characterized by him. He urged the students to stand a pivotal moment in history where, according to him, rapid global changes present both significant challenges and unique opportunities. Kafia emphasized that young people are the future generation of the country. He maintained that the leadership in the modern era goes beyond holding political office, noting that it is expressed through ideas, service, influence, and moral courage. A civil society organization under the banner Basel Democratic Movement for Transparency, Accountability, and Good Governance has petitioned the Liberal Anti-Corruption Commission to launch an investigation into what it termed as unexplained wealth obtained by Commerce Minister Madeline Dakose of that's after assuming office. According to the group, within less than a year, Minister Dakose has acquired multiple high-value properties in Grambassa County and other locations within an estimated total value approaching $500,000 United States dollars. They noted that the elect positions, including residential duplexes and properties in Buchanan City, are said to be grossly disproportional to estimated annual salary that's of about 60,000. Master citizen Josh Otto is calling on the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission to dismiss a complaint filed by the civil society movement, Master Democratic Movement for Transparency, Accountability and Good Governance against Commerce Minister Macaulay Dacote over alleged unexplained wealth. Speaking in Monrovia Thursday, Otto argued that the complaint is politically motivated and lacks credible evidence, serving more to advance the group's selfish political agenda in the interest of Grand Bastard community. He described the petition as a plea to play move that will scare away investors and hinder development in the county. A high-level dedication from the United States-based Medidand Challenge Corporation is in Liberia to engage the government officials and civil society organizations in discussion on the way forward for the second MCC compact. Speaking at the meeting held in Monrovia Thursday, the Minister of Finance and Development Planning, Augustine Gaffon, said Liberian people are grateful for the renewed MCC engagement. He assured that the government of Liberia is committed to translating its public optimism into tangible development outcomes for the country. Mr. Gaffon noted that the recommendation, a reconfirmation of Liberia's electability for the MCC compact has strengthened the government's collective resolve to deliver measurable and impactful results. For her part, the managing director for Africa and the Millennium Challenge Corporation, Corey Monahan, stated that the delegation will hold consultation with relevant government institutions and civil society organizations to gather broader based input and better understand the priorities of the Liberian people. Nima County Senator Yan Twan has openly criticized the mineral development agreement between the government of Liberia and ArcelorMittal Liberia, describing the deal as fundamentally flawed and detrimental to the nation's interests. Speaking at the Capitol building, Thursday, Senator Twan expressed deep dissatisfaction with the agreement, arguing that it has failed to deliver meaningful and lasting benefits to the Liberian people. The MDA signed in 2005 was intended to regulate ArcelorMittal Liberia's operation within the country's mining sector. However, critics, including Senator Nyantua, contended that the company has underperformed in several key areas, including job creation, infrastructure development, and community empowerment. Liberia has been placed on a new U.S. visa suspension list, joining several other countries as the United States move to tighten visa screening and vetting procedures. According to Fox News reports Wednesday, the U.S. State Department memo directs consular officers to refuse visa on an existing law in why the department recesses immigrant visa processing protocols. The report noted that visa pause is set to begin on January 21st and will continue indefinitely until the resettlement of immigrant visa procedures is complete. Other countries on the list include Somalia, Russia, Afghanistan, Brazil, Iran, Iraq, Egypt, Nigeria, Thailand, and Yemen. It can be recalled in November of 2025, the State Department issued a cable of posts worldwide instructing consular officers to ensure a final screening under the public charge provision of immigration law. Meanwhile, Liberia's inclusion on the suspension list has sparked public debate, as many termed the news as a total surprise that the country had not appeared on previous lists.
Many thanks to Newton Topadere with the news bulletin. The news bulletin is a regular feature on King's News Broom. If you just joined us, a reminder you are in tune to King's News Broom for the 5 minutes of news from Liberia and the rest of our one war. One of our top stories this evening, U.S. government officials raised concerns over House Speaker Richard Coons' U.S. green card marital controversy involving a woman claiming to be his sister. We'll bring you more developments as we go through the program. Let's take this development now. The Liberal Council of Churches has strongly condemned the alleged sodomy and gang rape of a 14-year-old boy reportedly involving former NSA officer Peter Bonjalai. Speaking at a press conference in Monrovia Thursday, LCC Secretary General Reverend Dr. Christopher Toole described the alleged act as grave criminal offense and gross violation of the victim's fundamental rights to life and dignity. Reverend Dr. Toole stated that such actions constitute a clear breach of Liberia's constitution as well as the country's international obligations, which require the state to prevent, investigate, and prosecute acts of sexual violence.
Another council of churches in the public term condemned arrest, sodomy, and rape of a lad involving NSA official, Mr. Peter Bonjala, stating that it is a serious criminal offense and a violation of the right to live. The LCC says this act represents a breach of Liberia's constitution and its international commitments, which obligate the state to prevent and address sexual violence. The LCC concerns over confidence expresses alarm at the rising incidents of sexual violence, particularly those involving state authorities, which undermines public trust. The LCC demands an independent and transparent investigation by the government of Liberia and relevant agencies, ensuring that there is no political interference. The LCC urges the enforcement of strict policy against sexual exploitation in public institutions and insists on accountability for offenders. The LCC emphasizes the importance of providing survivor-centered responses, including medical, legal, and psychosocial support, and treating survivors with dignity and respect. The Council of Church maintains that achieving justice for survivors is both a legal and moral obligation, which is crucial for rebuilding public trust and protecting rights and dignity. The Council of Churches is in empathy with the victim and family and reaffirm its commitment to advocating for accountability and creating a society where every individual is safe and respected. The Council prays that justice will not reflect bias and that the investigation will be conclusive and truthful.
Is the Liberal Council of Churches Secretary General Reverend Dr. Christopher Toole. They're speaking today in Monrovia. Information Minister Jolimi Pia has assured the public that the United Party-led government will not permit a repeat of the U.S. sanctions experienced during the administration of former President George Weah. Minister Pia's response follows U.S. government's decision to indefinitely pause the processing of certain immigrant visas for nationals of 75 countries, including Liberia. Speaking at Ministry of Information and Cultural Affairs and Tourism press briefing in Monrovia on Thursday, Mr. Pia clarified that the United States does not sanction the Weah administration as a government, but rather impose measures on specific individuals it identified as having engaged in criminal activities. The information minister also dismissed reports suggesting that the United States has imposed a blanket restriction on visas for Liberians.
There's no way we can make or remake the history of our country. If you were here yesterday and America sanctioned you, it was for you. They didn't sanction the country. They did not even sanction the government of Liberia or President India. They sanctioned criminal elements of that administration. Those criminal elements are living with the scars of those sanctions. Even though some of them are attempting to make it a little nothing has happened to them. They move from radio station to radio station, they hear it, they think that they're having conversation. They try to have a mix of interpretation to say, oh, they said this thing happened during the last weekend, this happened to them. Nothing happened to anybody. The choices that come with immigrant visa initiative are questionable. They can't government basis. The government does not tell your husband to send for the wife, not to send for the children. Those are questionable immigration initiatives. In every country, irrespective of the bilateral relationship they have with you, on their own national security and other concerns that they will always work on, even in the midst of having excellent bilateral relationship with you. You hear someone and you hear, oh, is it like Brian and America that good relationship? Why they forcing immigrant visa? Immigrant visa is not a government targeted situation. When you go in for your immigrant visa, in your visa, government can get it. Very well about it. And how is there for Liberia in particular? You hear that it's 75 countries, you've seen the names of some of the countries, strong countries from Europe, from Asia, from different parts of the world, with excellent relationship with the United States. Like I can brag that Liberia has an excellent relationship with America. What does that have to do with people who we choose or who we live in the rest. Only the Americans will decide who will live to stay. That's why those of you who are seeking visa not to go to live in America, that those family don't have far for you, that your children are not far for you, but you just want to do the regular visiting that has been happening, unfortunately, means something. And when you apply for it, you immediately get a visa because they took that action on Nigeria. Our visa validity range from 1 year, also 3 years, 6 months, we may hear some people, to up to 3 years.
His Information Minister, Jeremy Piag, is speaking today at NICA regular press briefing in Monrovia. A high-level dedication from the United States-based Millennium Challenge Corporation is in Liberia to engage government officials and civil society organizations in discussions on the way forward for a second MCC compact. Speaking at a meeting held in Monrovia on Thursday, the Minister of Finance and Development Planning, Augustine Gaffan, said the Liberian people are grateful for the renewed MCC engagement. He assured that the government of Liberia is committed to translating public optimism into tangible development outcomes for the country.
The entire government, the people of Liberia are excited at the MCC, and we at the level of the government will do our part to translate their excitement into tangible outcomes for this country. Now that was been reconfirmed, it's like the job starts. The very long road is a road that will require effort, hard work, and what I call a whole government approach to achieving the outcomes. You've come so as to take us further. Liberia is related to see again. We are sure is that we are going to put in our paces so that the compact development process, which could last as long as 2 years, could be shortened based on what we do. We had a good conversation with you and the team after the reaffirmation on some of the next steps. And so what this is the next step. You told us we were coming, and this engagement will be January 15th. And when the guys are here, so we are moving meticulously with the next steps. And we assure you that we will be starting the process to recruit some of the personnel for the new MCC office. We send out vacancy notices, and the responses have been overwhelming. And so working with all our partners and with you, we intend to expedite the process so that by February, the leadership can be in, and then we'll start to.
For her part, the managing director for Africa at the Millennium Challenge Corporation, Korea Montahan, stated that the delegation will hold consultations with relevant government institutions and civil society organizations to gather broad-based input and better understand the priorities of the Liberian people. Ms. Mutahan emphasized that the MCC team visit underscores the long-standing historical relationship between the United States and Liberia.
We at MCC were extremely thrilled to see Liberia continue. We could hear cheers around the building. Everyone was just very, very happy to get where we are today. And as you said, Mr. Minister, this is really due to our shared history, to the very deep U.S.-Liberia partnership, and also to the success of the first MCC Compact, which was a very ambitious project. And MCC was very, very proud of these results. These are things that are very closely considered by MCC's board of directors. So we're very happy to be here today. So as for our trip this week, I'm here to first meet with government stakeholders like you to discuss what the compact development process looks like. It is a long road. We are hoping to sign the compact within a 2-year time frame, which is very ambitious, but we're very confident that together we can get there. MCC compacts are based on very rigorous analysis, so we collect a lot of data to really understand what the constraints to growth are within a particular sector. We also do a lot of stakeholder consultation across the country, so not just working with government, but understanding the opinions of the private sector, civil society, and of the Liberian people to understand what projects would really unlock economic growth and investment in this country. So during this trip, we're going to be talking about some of the key milestones of compact development. As Mr. Minister said, the next one is a workshop that will take place later in February. We call it a root cause analysis. And what this means is within a particular constraint or sector, deciding what are the problems within the sector and what are the causes of those concerns so that we can together develop projects and a compact that really address the true root causes of any problems or concerns within the sector. And we'll be getting a variety of perspectives of that workshop, again, not just government, but civil society and private sector. And then finally, I'd like to highlight again that this process of compact development is supported by MCC, but it's really driven by the team that's going to be set up. It's a country-led process and should be very collaborative so that the project that's designed meets the needs of the people of Liberia and of the country of Liberia.
She's the managing director for Africa at the Millennium Challenge Corporation, Korea Montahan. Earlier, you listened to Finance and Development Planning Minister Kafan. Tuned to King's Newsroom for the 5 minutes of news from Liberia, Africa, and the rest of our One World. Today's Thursday, January 15, 2026. My name is Cornelius Johnson, presenting. Straight up in the headlines, U.S. government officials raise concerns over House Speaker Rachel Cohn's U.S. green card marital controversy involving a woman claiming to be his sister. Aggrieved workers of the National Port Authority calls on President Boakai to veto a bill proposing to grant autonomy to Liberia's ports, warning that it poses a serious threat to the survival of smaller ports across the country. Liberia's Council of Churches condemns the alleged sodomy and gang rape of a 14-year-old boy reportedly involving former NSA officer Peter Bonjala, emphasizes the need for a strict enforcement of policy against sexual exploitation. Across the border, votes begin in Uganda elections as opposition alleges rigging. We take a very short break. When we come back, we'll bring you more developments on the program. Thanks for being there and welcome back to this development on aggrieved workers of the National Port Authority through the Dock Workers Union have formally petitioned President Joseph Boakai to veto a bill proposing to grant autonomy to Liberia's ports. According to them, the proposed legislation could have adverse consequences for the long-term sustainability and coordinated management of the country's port system. In their petition, the UN described the bill as counterproductive to port development, arguing that it is not supported by any evidence that can justify such a significant policy shift. They maintain that the legislation fails to adequately consider the substantial operational and financial resources required to develop and maintain ports nationwide.
There's a bill right now before Your Excellency Joseph Human Boakai to sign into law the Autonomous Act, the National Port Authority, that says that all the ports of Nigeria that make up the National Port Authority should be separately autonomous to operate from their own angle, the separate management and the rest of them. So that's the reason we are here, because this autonomous act is supposed to be something beneficial to the already employee of the National Port Authority. But from research, we've got to realize that this bill is not beneficiary, and as a matter of fact, coming from the angle of just mass minority, it benefits few handfuls of people who feel that by this structure, they will need morale. So very, very directly, so to generate the bill. And we can be taking what proposed to do right now. But what we're referring to here is that the bill by itself is not in the interest of the workforce. If you separate a code now, it means that the revenue generation.
Aggrieved workers of the National Port Authority, they're petitioning President Joseph Waka to veto a bill seeking to establish port autonomy in the country. To this development now, Nimba County Senator Nyan Twine has openly criticized the mineral development agreement between the government of Liberia and ArcelorMittal Liberia, describing the deal as fundamentally flawed and detrimental to national interest. Speaking at the Capitol building Thursday, Senator Twine expressed deep dissatisfaction with the agreement, arguing that it has failed to deliver meaningful and lasting benefits to the Liberian people. The MDA signed in 2005 was intended to regulate ArcelorMittal Liberia's operations within the country's mining sector. However, critics, including Senator Twine, contend that the company has underperformed in several key areas, including job creation, infrastructure development, and community empowerment.
The proposed third amendment to the ArcelorMittal Mineral Development Agreement now before us is not a routine administrative exercise. It is a consequential restructuring of one of Liberia's most strategic concession agreements, and it demands sober and rigorous scrutiny. At first glance, the amendment is presented as a restated and consolidated agreement that merely incorporates prior amendments. In substance, however, it requires a fundamental change in the identity of the principal owner. All rights and obligations are now being assigned from ArcelorMittal Switzerland AG to ArcelorMittal USA Liberia. A newly structured entity that operating across jurisdiction. The question now is, how can a change of company occur on December 9, 2025? And the MDA agreement is signed December 20, 2025, barely 11 days after. Who then was the government negotiating with? Is it ArcelorMittal Switzerland or ArcelorMittal USA?
Is Nimba County Senator Nyan Twine. They're speaking. A newly established advocacy group, Citizens United for Fair and Improved Electrical Services in Nimba County, has accused the government of Liberia and private electricity providers of systemic neglect, exploitation, and prioritizing elite interests over the broader public welfare. The group, which comprises residents, small business owners, youth leaders, and civil society actors from across Nimba County, made their allegations during a press conference held at Kanta Youth Center. Speaking on behalf of the organization, Chairman Prince Howell emphasized that access to electricity is a fundamental public service, not a privilege. He stressed that reliable power supply is a basic necessity that should be made available to all citizens.
We stand before you here today as Citizens United for Fair and Improved Electricity Service, COFI, not as enemy of government, not as agitator, no, not as ordinary Liberians speaking but as ordinary Liberians speaking for millions whose voices have been for too long. Let us be clear and unambiguous this morning, very clear. Electricity is a public utility, as we always say. So it is not a luxury that only the rich and the well-off can enjoy. Electricity is not a favor to anybody, it is our right. Electricity is a right, not a privilege reserved for the rich and the powerful. We said no. Yet, in today's Liberia, electricity have been transformed into something only the well-off can afford, while the poor and the working class live in darkness. We say this is wrong. We say this is unjust, and this must change, and it must change.
Is Prince Howell, the chairman for the newly established advocacy group Citizens United for Fair and Improved Electrical Services in Nimba County, still with civil society organizations. a civil society organization under the banner Basel Democratic Movement for Transparency, Accountability, and Good Governance, has petitioned the Liberal Anti-Corruption Commission to launch an investigation into what a term as unexplained wealth obtained by Commerce Minister Madeleine Dagose after assuming public office. According to the group, within less than a year, Minister Dagoze has acquired multiple high value properties in Grand Bassa County and other locations with an estimated total value approaching $500,000 United States. They noted that the alleged acquisitions, including residential duplexes and properties in Buchanan City, are said to be grossly disproportionate to her estimated annual salary of about 60,000. In a related development, a prominent Basel citizen, George Otto, is calling on the Liberal Anti-Corruption Commission to dismiss a complaint filed by the civil society movement, Basel Democratic Movement for Transparency, Accountability, and Good Governance against Commerce Minister Madeleine Dagose over alleged unexplained wealth. Speaking in Monrovia Thursday, Otto argued that the complaint is politically motivated and lacks credible evidence, serving more to advance the group's selfish political agenda than the interests of Grand Bassa County. He described the petition as pay-to-play move that could scare away investors and hinder development in the county.
I'm at the LSC compound to vehemently denounce and the wrong image being portrayed by some of our colleagues in the name of the civil society, like filing a formal complaint against the prominent citizens of our county on the basis of what they claim are alleged corruption on investment in the county. So the reason we are here today is to inform the LCC. We did a formal complaint to the chairperson of the LCC, calling for the petition to dismiss whatsoever petition that will be filed by a so-called political group highly under the disguise of civil society that has brought a bad image to our county. Grand Bassa County is known for being hospitable, and the hospitality of Grand Bassa County also involves the encouragement to bring in investment. So if citizens of Bassa are investing in the county, we shouldn't be the one depriving them or investing in their own. And let me say to you today, the reason our county it is the way it is because we have politicized all sectors of our county. Social cohesion, we have politicized health, we have politicized education, we have politicized just everything in the county. How can a person working with government coming back to invest in the county is being seen as corruption? The Minister of Commerce, she's a prominent citizen of the county. It's not just her. What is happening will scare away many persons who are from Basel for investing in Basel. If those people from Basel working in Monrovia and feel that there is a need for investment in the county, they will be scared because when they come there, we as young people or we as adults, we as youth, we want to tie them to corruption, even though they are working for the money, even though the high-end salaries are there to be used wisely to invest in our county. Today, if you went to Basel, how many of our people who live in Monrovia or in the diaspora are investing? They are afraid because of some of these reasons. We don't analyze, we don't see things as we're supposed to see it. We criticize everything. How does
He's George Otto, a prominent citizen of Grand Bassa County. They're calling on the LCC to dismiss a petition filed by a civil society group calling for investigation into unexplained wealth or by Commerce Minister Madeleine Dagose. Away from home now, votes are being counted in parts of Uganda amid an internet shutdown and opposition accusations of raking in presidential preliminary elections. According to presidential hopeful Bobby Wine, in a post on social media, he said massive ballot stuffing has been reported everywhere without providing documented proof. The authorities have not responded to his allegations of electoral fraud, nor to his claim that many polling agents and supervisors belonging to his NUP party were abducted and others chased out the polling stations. Delays of up to 4 hours have been blamed on malfunctioning biometric machines used to verify voters' identities. Some have linked their problems to network outage, plus a lack of voting materials and equipment not arriving at some stations on time. Polling stations therefore closed later than planned. The Electoral Commission says that anybody who joined the crew by 5 o'clock PM was able to cast a ballot. To end this news here once again, our top stories we closely follow. U.S. government officials raise concerns over House Speaker Rachel Cohn's U.S. green card marital controversy involving a woman claiming to be his sister. Aggrieved workers of the National Port Authority calls on President Boyka to veto a bill proposing to grant autonomy to Liberia sports, warning that it poses a serious threat to the survival of smaller ports across the country. Liberia Council of Churches condemns the alleged sodomy and gang rape of a 14-year-old boy reportedly involving former NSA officer Peter Bonjalai, emphasizes the need for a strict enforcement of policies against sexual exploitation. And away from home, votes are being counted in parts of Uganda amid an internet shutdown and opposition accusations of rigging in presidential and preliminary elections. The news bulletin voices of the newsmakers have all been on this edition of the program. Many thanks to all of our contributors, editors, and reporters who help in making this edition of the program our sources. Thanks to Newton Tukba, who brought us our news bulletin. Thanks to the man Frank Swain, who sat at control and ably coordinated the sound on behalf of the entire team. My name is Johnson. I presented and watching. Good evening.